Welcome back, everyone, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki. This is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. This is episode 11, where we will be talking Masters of the Air, the Apple TV original show, and X-Men 97, episodes 1-3, which have come out on Disney Plus over the last 2 weeks. Happy Easter. It is Easter Monday when this is coming out, but I'm filming on Thursday, March 28th, of course, filming before I travel for the weekend to spend some quality time with my family. I am no longer house sitting. I am back in my usual nook in my parents' basement and happy to be home, happy to be sleeping in my own bed without a dog that hogs the bed all night and spreads herself out as much as she can. I hope you're having a great Easter weekend or had a great Easter weekend and are enjoying the Easter Monday and are ready for another great week. Lots of new stuff, lots of stuff to talk about as well in general. The first piece of news is it looks like The Batman Part 2 has set a filming date or a production date, and it looks like it's going to be starting in April of 2025, so still a full year away to put kind of the finishing touches on the script, casting announcements, and bringing everything together, scouting locations, everything that you need to do in pre-production, like costuming and design, set building, everything like that. So they just announced the delay, whether it was last week or the week before, that it is delayed at like a full year, which is a bit of a bummer that it is a full year delay, but at least it's for the sake of the story, and it's not because people are being fired or let go. It is just because of the strikes that were ongoing this summer that luckily came to a resolution that benefited the people that were on strike. And yeah, it just looks like they couldn't finish the script in time, so didn't want to rush things. And just this week, I think Robert Pattinson and his partner Suki Waterhouse, they had their first child together, so it would have sucked for him having to leave. When your lead performer has to leave their newborn baby and go film a movie for however long, you know, it's not ideal. So this way he can enjoy a year of being a father. They can film next April or whatever, and I think that's going to be good. This time delay will just kind of benefit the project. I think it'll give it more time to fix things and make things more precise in the script and polish things off to really get it ready to hopefully live up to the hype of the first one, which I think was a really great film in general. And there is already kind of casting rumors going around. There was one sort of internet scooper this week that was saying that Boyd Holbrook, who people might know from Logan, Narcos, The Predator, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I think he was in like The Sandman and maybe even in Gone Girl as well. Apparently he's going to be playing Harvey Dent, is a rumor that was going around this week. So we'll see Harvey Dent and possibly Two-Face if he makes that evolution. And I think he'd be a really great choice. He's a very good actor. I've seen him in a few things, and I know that in Narcos he plays like a DEA agent or something like that, or some kind of federal agent. He can slip into that role quite easily. Another piece of news, as if he's not getting enough attention for how great he is in Dune Part 2, Timothée Chalamet has apparently signed a deal with Warner Brothers to star in and produce new movies after his success with Wonka and Dune, which were both Warner Brothers projects. So a lot of different outlets this week, like Variety and Deadline, and everyone was reporting that they're kind of doubling down on business with Chalamet, and the studio signed a multi-year feature film deal with the actor to collaborate on future projects as a star and a producer. Like Wonka had made $632 million globally, and Dune Part 2 has made like $575 million globally, and it's still in theaters, obviously. He's going to get a big salary bump after those box office numbers, and this feels like a very kind of old studio system type thing where they used to sign, you know, a 14 picture deal or whatever with stars and just make 4 movies with them every year or whatever. But Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi, co-chairs and CEOs of Warner Brothers, said they are thrilled that Timothée Chalamet has chosen our studio to be his creative home. As part of a first look agreement, Chalamet can make movies elsewhere, but Warner Brothers will get first dibs on backing his potential projects. They said that over the last few years, we have admired not only Timothy's commitment to his craft, which is evident in the range and depth of his varied roles, but also his unwavering dedication to give 100% of his time and attention to every project he has made here at Warner Brothers and elsewhere. I think this is a really great thing. Timothée Chalamet has made a lot of really great stuff, and I have been going back and kind of watching things, and I've seen a lot of the works that he's been in. I think like the only big one I haven't seen with him is Bones and All, and it would be interesting to watch. When I talk about what else I watched this week after the 2 reviews, I'll talk about a film I watched with him in it that I think he was very good in. Yeah, this is a very interesting piece of news because it's not very often that you get stars signing like a multi-picture deal outside of, say, Marvel Studios. Yeah, old Hollywood feels like it's back. And I mean, Tom Cruise signed a similar thing with Warner Brothers, that he's also going to be starring in and producing original films with them and multiple film deals. So that's really cool. Who knows? We might even see something with them together. And I saw some random kooks online that were saying like, oh my God, if he's with Warner Brothers, he should be in the Batman Part 2 and he should have a role, which if he's Nightwing already or Robin, that's like super early. But I mean, it would be cool because Timmy's a great actor, and I think he's great as Paul Atreides, and he's good in, Lady Bird. He's good in everything I've seen him, even in Don't Look Up, which I think was overall a fine movie, but not really good. He's even funny in that as that hillbilly dude. Yeah, really cool deal. Good for him. He's getting that bank. He's a terrific performer. My first time I ever saw him was in Interstellar, and what the amount of growth he's had since then is pretty crazy, and now he's like one of the biggest stars there is in the world to look at right now. And another piece of news, speaking of someone we've talked about recently, after Love Lies Bleeding last week, just this week it was announced that Katy O'Brian, the star who played Jackie in that film, has actually been cast in the 8th Mission Impossible movie, which I believe is filming right now in London. And there's like zero plot details about the film so far, but there was, a video of Tom Cruise running in London this week or something like that, and that's what he does. It's what he does best. Yeah, really cool. I'm very happy that she's joining. I think she's a really great performer, and just like the physicality she brought to Love Lies Bleeding and, kicking the shit out of people, I think that's kind of perfect for the Mission Impossible universe. It just seems like Tom Cruise and like Christopher McQuarrie and everyone in that world love to just cast people who can just beat the shit out of people, like Palm Clementif and, Rebecca Ferguson. So I cannot wait for the next Mission Impossible. I don't think they've put out a bad one since Mission Impossible 2. I'm completely on board with them making as many as they want to make. I kind of hope 8 is the last one, just so, they don't make this go on forever. Just in general, these are great films, and if they did choose to go on, I wouldn't be totally against it, but you do need to wrap it up somewhere, and I feel like 8 is a pretty good number considering he's been doing this since 1995, I think the first one came out, so pretty wild. So she's joining the cast, Katy O'Brian. She's no doubt going to beat the shit out of Ethan Hunt, and I can't wait to be there on opening day and see that happen. And speaking of the stars of Love Lies Bleeding, Kristen Stewart this week revealed the one person who could possibly convince her to star in a Marvel movie. So basically, she was on a show this week, and they were asking her about playing Mary Jane Watson from the Spider-Man comic, and the actress said that she does like big movies because she likes to watch the people that are in them, but she would kind of never be in one because it feels like, the system that they operate in would have to change, and you'd have to put so much money and so much trust into one person, and it just doesn't happen. So therefore, what ends up happening in this is this algorithmic weird experience where you can't feel personal at all about it. But maybe the world changes, she said. And she said that Greta Gerwig is the only person she could see herself, selling out to Marvel for, just because of the I'm Just Ken performance and the experience and the joy she saw in that. So never say never to Kristen Stewart, who I also thought I feel like I didn't give her enough credit in last week's episode. I think she was good in the film, but it's just Katy O'Brian really stood out, and it felt like Kristen Stewart wasn't doing as much in the film. But I still think Kristen Stewart is a very, very good performer, and she gives a solid performance in pretty much everything she's in. Like you almost know what to expect from her. And other than like the Twilight movies don't count, I think everyone that's in those films should have them just like not count against their acting record, because they are what they are. So I think Kristen Stewart would be great in whatever roles she picks. I hope she keeps doing whoever's her agent right now, or whoever is picking the project she's a part of. I hope she sticks with that route, because her and Robert Pattinson have both done excellent jobs of picking their roles since the Twilight series. And I mean, Robert Pattinson was also in Harry Potter, but I think just kind of they've navigated that post-success thing where they were in this big franchise together. They got memed on super hard, but made a ton of money. Like the Twilight movies did make a bunch of money, really. They did pretty well, but they've both had such interesting career trajectories. Like, Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart have both just kind of done indie films, like Robert Pattinson in The Lighthouse, or he was in like the Netflix movie The King, and Kristen Stewart, amazing as Princess Diana. They've both done just really, really cool stuff. So I don't know, props to them. And if she did one day want to get a big paycheck and decide to sell out to Marvel, I mean, it's understandable, but I hope she keeps sticking on the path she's on, because she was amazing in Love Lies Bleeding, and I think just the films she's doing are very, very interesting. So the final piece of news, kind of ending on a high note, on a positive note for the news section. Christopher Nolan and Emma Thomas to receive a knighthood and damehood. So Christopher Nolan, he's going to get a knighthood. He's officially going to be Sir Christopher Nolan, and his wife and producing partner Emma Thomas is going to be Dame Emma Thomas. So the government, the British government, of course, said the pair were being honored for their services to film, with earlier this month Nolan winning his first ever Best Director Oscar for Oppenheimer and the Best Picture. That film, which his wife produced, of course, swept up the board at the 2024 ceremony, picking up 7 prizes in total. So it looks like this year they're going to be officially knighted and damed. I don't know, what's the past tense verb for becoming a dame? She will be damed, I guess. And he'll be, Sir Christopher Nolan by the time he's making his next film, which is really cool. I feel like they don't really do a lot of knighthoods anymore, so this is pretty sick. I hope everybody has to call him Sir Christopher because, he earned that badge, and she better be called Dame Emma Thomas. That's sick as hell. I kind of want a knighthood. I should get one as well. But that's enough for the news this week. I wanted to keep it a little bit shorter because we do have 2 things we're reviewing this week. As always, I'm going to have timestamps. We will talk non-spoilers, spoilers. I also have timestamps for the news section, the intro, the outro, what else I watched this week that I always go over after the topic of the week or the things I'm reviewing. So look for that in the description of the podcast on all the streamers and on YouTube. Of course, it'll be just below wherever you're listening. So I'll start with non-spoilers, but let's get into our first review. Masters of the Air is a 2024 American War drama television miniseries created by John Chabon and John Orloff for Apple TV+. It's based on the 2007 book of the same name by Donald L. Miller and follows the actions of the 100th Bomb Group, a Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress heavy bomber unit in the 8th Air Force in Eastern England during World War II. The series, which is a companion to Band of Brothers and The Pacific, but of the 3, it's the first series to be produced by Apple Studios in cooperation with Playtone and Amblin Television. The show stars Austin Butler as Major Gail Buck-Levin, Callum Turner as Major John Bucky Egan, Anthony Boyle as Lieutenant Harry Crosby, Barry Keoghan as Lieutenant Curtis Biddick, Sawyer Spielberg as Lieutenant Roy Frank Clayton, Isabel May as Major Marge Spencer, James Murray as Colonel Neil Chick Harding, Nate Mann as Major Robert Rosie Rosenthal, and many, many more, as I will get to. There is a lot of cast members in this show, and to a fault, I will say. Of course, I'm going to start with non-spoilers. I think the show has like 85% on Rotten Tomato. It has generally favorable reviews. There's 9 episodes in total, so they can range from anywhere to like 45 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes. It's an interesting watch. It's definitely not Band of Brothers quality, which if you haven't seen, I just watched it for the second time this year. I think I hadn't seen it since probably 2016, 2017. I think that is one of the best pieces of television ever, Band of Brothers. That is as good as it gets. And yeah, this is also based on a book, just like Band of Brothers was, just like The Pacific was, based off of Robert Leckie's book. And I've watched both of those series very recently, once this Masters of the Air had started on Apple. And I have to say, unfortunately, Masters of the Air does feel like the weakest of the 3. It don't get me wrong, it is a good and entertaining week-to-week show, but I wouldn't say it was great. I would at best say it was fine. It just never feels like it really, no pun intended here, gets off the ground because they're pilots. Do you guys get that? Okay, moving on. It's a very good cast. Everyone is pretty decent in it. There's no performers that you're like, yeesh, what are they doing? It feels like they're in a completely different show. It's just the problem of this show is there's too many people in it. There is a billion storylines. Nothing is very satisfying in this show. It never feels like we really give a shit about one person specifically. It feels like we kind of care about everyone, but I'm never fully invested in one person. It's kind of just like visually, oh, it's interesting what they're doing, and like it's fun to see all the danger they're going through, and it's like a riveting show, but it just, there's a real lack of stakes in this show. It feels like it runs out of steam, and it still had 4 episodes left. Before I get into major criticisms, and of course I'm still in non-spoilers, spoilers. I'll say some stuff I did like. It's a very good looking show in general. I think there is hit or miss moments with the CGI, but for the most part, the cinematography is really great. It's well filmed. The cast, the sets all look real, and the cast is really great performers. Callum Turner, for me, is the standout performer in this, who is dating my celebrity crush Dua Lipa, so lucky man. He's really great in this as John Egan is his name. He really does carry the show forward, and I feel like he feels like our hero, but he's still not really given enough to do. And I think the book is based from, and the narration in the show is all from Crosby's point of view or perspective. Like, he is the voice that we are following in the show. For me, John Egan, or Bucky, was the one I was most connected to, and I think that just came from Callum Turner's performance, and it just feels like he's kind of given the most to do, whereas Anthony Boyle as Crosby, he's pretty good, but I don't know, I just didn't feel that much of an attachment to him. And Austin Butler, I think he is really wasted in this series. Well, first of all, he disappears in one episode. It didn't really feel like there was a lot to do with him in those episodes where we have him. I don't want to spoil it, so I'll save that. Let's kind of break it down. I won't go through every single episode what happens, obviously, but I'll just say non-spoilers kind of how all the episodes feel. So episode 1 and 2 are very introductory of, who our players are in this field, and the pacing's not great. And you kind of forgive the show for that, because you're like, okay, it's episode 1 and 2. We're just kind of, we're getting warmed up here, and we just need to get to know the stakes that our performers have, that the characters have. And it kind of just, like, the stakes of the show are, it's war. Like, you know what it is. But there's no real personal stakes for me, or at least all the ones they do have don't feel that major, or we don't know our characters well enough for me to really care. So a little disappointing, because I was very early on the hype train for this show. I'm pretty sure the first time I heard about it was, oh my God, it was a long time ago. I think that's when they finished filming Elvis, and I heard that Austin Butler was cast in this, and I was like, oh, Tom Hanks is making a new, or Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks or whatever, because they've done all these projects together, like Saving Private Ryan. They've done all these things together, and I was like, oh, there's going to be a new one. Like, after, I think once I hit episode 3, I realized, oh, we're still feels like we're introducing everyone. And I'd been very early on the hype train for this, being like, oh my God, we're going to get a new band of brothers. This is going to be awesome. And by episode 4, I was starting to cross my fingers that something a little more not action packed, because there is action every single episode, but something else would happen. Episodes 1 and 2, yeah, a little slow. You're forgiving of the pace. 3 to 6, there's only 9 episodes. 3 to 6 all feel like the same thing happening every week, kind of. It's all just them going on bombing runs and realizing, oh my God, this is so dangerous. This is crazy what we're doing. They want to send us here. We're losing men like crazy. And it's like the same thing every episode. Somehow guys are surviving, but they're losing tons of people. And in spoilers, I'll get into more specific things, but it just feels like there isn't a lot of variety in what we're seeing every week. It's kind of, if they did one episode showing, how many men they're losing and how quick it is, it would be very powerful. Or if they did it for 2 episodes, not 4 episodes, because by the 4th episode, I'm just kind of desensitized to it and be like, yeah, we know. And I think they miscast some roles, because we only care about certain characters because of who's playing them, and then they're not in the series half the time. The people we know, and I think it's people that are drawn to the show because of who's in it, will be disappointed. And I'm guessing, people that are fans of Barry Keoghan, Austin Butler, they're going to be disappointed in the show because they have really nothing to do. And it's kind of a bummer. But on the bright side, you get to see Callum Turner, who I haven't really seen in anything else. And now I'm convinced he's going to be massive. He's going to be in tons of stuff, because I think he is really great in the show. He nails a non-generic American accent. He does feel like he's from New York. He's not doing the Hugh Laurie, Doctor Strange American accent, or Doctor House and Doctor Strange, Hugh Laurie, Benedict Cumberbatch accents, where they're just I don't know, vaguely American accents. So I think it's a good show overall. it doesn't really live up to the hype of its predecessors, which is a hard task to do, because I do think comparing anything with Band of Brothers is a very unfair thing to do. But this show, just some of the dialogue is very wooden, stiff, and doesn't flow sometimes. Yeah, it just really never feels like we get out of first gear. And by the time it kind of does raise the stakes and feel a little more interesting, it's kind of too late. And it's like, well, you lost me at episode 5 or 6 or whatever. And then there's moments later in the series where you're like, oh my God, we're really losing steam and just nothing's happening. Like episode 6, you're kind of wondering like, oof, are they wrapping this up soon? I feel like we've been doing the same thing every week since episode 1. But for the most part, even though we are seeing the same thing, I feel like I've been very critical of it, but it was a little bit disappointing for me. I will say, though, it was still entertaining to watch. I still really enjoyed it every week. I was looking forward to tuning in every Thursday night or Friday to watch it. And at the end of the day, I feel like I got my money's worth. Even though I wasn't blown away, I still think it's a very solid show. This show would be like an A-, B+. Like it's good. It's definitely above average, and you can just enjoy it as a generic kind of World War II movie, but it's not breathtaking, revolutionary television or filmmaking. You know, it's just something that you can kind of throw on and enjoy, and you'll probably never watch again. I feel like the book would probably be more interesting, and I feel like there's more, I don't know, character growth, and maybe they just trimmed all of that out for the TV show. I don't know how long the book is, but they may have had to severely edit it to make a TV show that works. And yeah, it just feels like there's way too many characters in this. The cast is absolutely massive. I mean, I only named like 6 or 7, and there's like 40 people just on the IMDb or Wikipedia alone that you're like, oh yeah, they actually have a lot of scenes. Yeah, they have a lot of scenes. Okay, they do as well, yes. And you're like, okay, where do we stop with kind of the main cast? Production value. Like I said, the cinematography is really great. It's generally a very good-looking show, but there is times where the CGI feels very weird and plastic. Like there's some great CGI bombing runs and stuff like that, but then there's other moments where it's like, ooh, yeesh, that's like I think in episode 2 or episode 3, and it's shown in the trailers, it's shown in friggin' intro that's at the start of every episode. They go to Africa, and the desert stuff does not look very good, and the lighting and everything that kind of ties into all the framing doesn't look very good, and the planes look really fake. Like they just look super CGI, and they're very weird plastic rubbery. Yeah, the CGI is a little iffy in this. It has some good moments, but it also has some very, very off moments. So for an Apple TV show, I was a little disappointed because Apple has like $1 trillion or whatever. You'd think they could pay for some CGI or give the artists more time to work on stuff, but it just doesn't really work at certain times. Overall, it's an entertaining show, and I think I'm just going to go into spoilers because, I mean, it's been on for 10 weeks. If you haven't seen it, you could breeze through this in a weekend. It's 9 episodes or whatever. So yeah, sorry, it's been on for 7 weeks, 8 weeks. I would recommend this. I have recommended it. My brother was watching it week to week. My friend Seamus was watching it week to week, and we all seem to enjoy it. And you know, we were all talking about it week to week. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the show wanted to accomplish, is getting people excited to watch something that they felt was entertaining every week. And I wasn't dreading turning this on every Friday and being like, oh, I gotta watch this for the podcast, or okay, well, I guess I'll just finish it to see where it goes. It was good, and I looked forward to it every week. If you like historical television, and it's based on a true story and based on a book, they do that thing at Band of Brothers and Pacific where they show the real life people at the end of it in photos, and it's really cool. It's an entertaining program, so why not check it out? But let's get into spoilers. I'm going to talk freely now. The ending felt very anticlimactic. Everyone lives, everyone kind of just appears unscathed. In about episode 6 or 7, Buck and Bucky, that's where they're in the camp where actually the Great Escape took place. That was a very interesting part of the show that I think kind of came into play a little too late. And it's interesting, their lives in the camps and stuff like that, and they're trying to navigate how they can kind of do espionage and detective work inside of the camps. But after 4 episodes of just bombing runs, I kind of felt like this feels like a little too late, guys. We have 3 episodes left, and I kind of want to know where all these people end up. Are the stakes going to rise at all? And it never feels like the stakes are rising. In the end, they all escape from the camps. They all end up back in England, and they all just fly home. And it's a very unsatisfying ending, to be honest. It's just everyone's unscathed. And I know it's based on a true story, and it's great in real life that everyone survived. But for a television show that's 9 weeks you've been watching, you feel a little bit sold out. And I was like, oh, it's just over. Everyone's just gonna go home now. Like that speaks to war, that you go through these incredible experiences that are terrifying and they change you for the rest of your life, and then you have to just go home and be with your families, and you have to go back to your jobs and stuff like that. And it's part of the life and part of the story of many people that served, and that's completely understood. But in the context of the television show, the entire last episode to me was just kind of, okay, they just got back. Like that's kind of disappointing. Like it never really felt like they were, the stakes are incredibly high right now. I'm on the edge of my seat. What's going to happen? It was just kind of a lot of meandering and like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. Or like, yeah, this is dangerous, but we'll figure it out. It's fine. And I think the stakes are appropriate for the story, but it's because we didn't get a good introduction to all of these characters, and there's too many people to care. I only have so much caring power, about these characters. Like, instead of giving us 20 different people that we follow in the show and tons of plot lines, give us 3 or give us 2. Like, just give us Buck and Bucky and Crosby, and that would be fine. But it just feels like we're following all these random people, like Rosie, who is a great character and actually played by Nate Mann, who I think a phenomenal actor as well. He's really good in this as Rosie, but he doesn't come into like episode 4, and by that time I'm like, oh man, like if you're gonna be this big hero, I wish you were here from the start. I get that he joins the 100th Bombers later, but it just felt like, I already have the heroes of the story. I don't really want to shift my attention to someone else. And we've already, in episode 3, Barry Keoghan dies, and it's like the first 2 episodes you really care about him as a character, and then one of the biggest names that's drawing people to this series is dying in episode 3. It's really funny, and I think people are going to be super sad. And like, Austin Butler isn't in this until he's in this for episodes 1 to 3 or 4, and then he goes down and he's put into a POW camp, and we don't see him till like episode 7. Again, Austin Butler fans as well that are watching this show are going to be very bummed out, because they just have like 4 weeks that they've just watched without their, the person they're watching this show for. But, respect to the makers of the show that they didn't really cater the stars and be like, well, they're the star, they have to be in every episode. It's like, no, they're playing a character just like everyone else, and we're not thinking about fans, and we're not thinking about star power and stuff like that. So whatever. Anyways, that's just kind of nitpicking, so I feel bad for that. But it was kind of disappointing that the performers I was most interested in were not in much of this series, and I purposefully was like attentive to the show because I'm like, oh cool, Austin Butler's in this, he's a good actor, and oh, Barry Keoghan's in this, he's decent and stuff, like Banshees of Inisherin, that'll be really cool. And then he dies in episode 3, and I'm like, well, shit. And oh, Austin Butler's a POW. Okay. So we're not gonna he's not back this week either. Okay, well, we'll see episode. Oh, he's not back in episode 5 either. Oh, okay. Well, episode 6, oh, he's back, but the episode's over. Okay, cool. And then episode 7, and we're cutting away to other storylines, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like you used the whole first and second episode to establish the heroes of the story pretty much, and then we just like lose them, and they're not together really until the end of the series. So just very messy, and I don't know. I think if they were going to adapt the book, they should have adapted a little bit more to make it more focused and really give us our heroes. There's also some storylines where it feels like we're really sold short, like the William Quinn storyline, where he is, he's part of a crew that lands in Germany, or I think it's Germany. I can't remember. That might be wrong. Anyways, he goes down in Nazi territory, and they have to escape. And there's like 2 episodes where it's all about him escaping with this beautiful woman and like another soldier, and then we just never see the end of the escape of what happens. And one episode, like 4 episodes later, he's just on the tarmac biking with another soldier, and they're smiling and laughing. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, did I did I get my memory wiped or did I miss something? It feels like we really got cut short on that, because that could have been a really interesting storyline, because they spend 2 episodes establishing it. We spend 2 hours or 2 episodes, pretty much 2 hours, establishing Quinn's escape from, Axie's territory, and we never really get an appropriate payoff. And it just really pissed me off. I was like, are you serious? I actually really cared about this storyline. Finally, it felt like there were some goddamn stakes in this show, and we get nothing, and I just see him smiling on a friggin' bike like 4 episodes later. I thought that was so stupid, and I did not understand that. The Sandra Westgate and Crosby storyline. So he's going to London and seeing this girl on the side, and like he has a wife at home. But like he's kind of, he's in love with this woman during the war, and it's an interesting storyline, but we never get resolution. And I know for a fact in real life it's unclear what Sandra actually did and what her role was during the war. It's kind of played that she's a spy, and she is a spy in the show, but like it never really, it just didn't feel like a great payoff to me, and Crosby's just like really hung up on it. They had a great storyline, and I actually started to care about it, but it just kind of feels like it fizzles out and doesn't really go anywhere after they finally, get romantically involved with each other, and then she just disappears because she's, probably a spy for Britain and has to go do some espionage on the Nazis, but they just never talk again. And it's like, oh, okay, that's it. There is like a lot of that. It feels like a lot of the episodes and a lot of the characters and the storylines just run out of steam. They just kind of fizzle into nothing. And it's disappointing. But again, it's still really entertaining. And like week to week, it's still a fun show to watch. And the characters are interesting, but you don't really care about them. It's like, I hope you make it out, but I don't really give a shit. I just feel like with Band of Brothers in the Pacific, you really do care about the characters, because you know what they're fighting for, you know what matters to them, you know how much they care about each other. Whereas in this, a lot of it is just kind of meh, yeah, we're best friends. But it's like, I don't know, it just never really feels like the emotional stakes are there. There are the physical stakes, and the war is at large, and we know what the stakes are for the world, but for our characters, we don't care enough about them to care about whether they live or die, or I really need them to make it out, because if they don't make it out, I'm going to be devastated. It's like, well, we've seen so many people die in this, and they were all just in the show for like 20 minutes or whatever, and they were supposed to be a hero as well, so like, why should I get attached to these people either? I just think a lot more of the story should have focused on Buck and Bucky, because they were so interesting and they had such a great friendship in episode 1 and 2, and then we kind of just don't see them together for a long time in the show. But overall, a good program, like a decent program. I say like an 8.5, 8. I'd probably say an 8 out of 10. Like really decent, fun to watch. It's interesting. It's not blow your socks off and out your ass television, but it's an interesting show to watch. And I think Apple TV has actually pretty good programming, and it's really cool that they made this. But definitely the weakest of the 3 between the Pacific, Band of Brothers, and this. I would say Band of Brothers is first, Pacific second, Masters of the Air third, and Saving Private Ryan is definitely a more entertaining film than this is a entertaining television program. But I mean, overall, the 4 of them, or the 3 television shows, all 3 are pretty solid. I think it's kind of diminishing returns on the 3. Who knows? Maybe if this was an HBO program, it would have gone differently and maybe had more structure or something like that. I don't know. I think HBO does great stuff, and Apple TV has good programs, but they do have some real stinkers. Anyways, that is enough of Masters of the Air. I would recommend it. Go check it out on Apple TV Plus if you have it. Now let's talk about another show that is a continuation it is a continuation. X-Men 97. X-Men 97. Animated television series on Disney Plus, created by Bo DeMaio for streaming on Disney Plus, and it's a week-to-week show, and it's actually a revival of the X-Men animated series from 1992 to 1997. I wasn't alive and wasn't ever seeing a live episode, obviously. I wasn't born until 2000, but I have seen many episodes of the X-Men series, and I'd say this is a very, 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 very worthy successor of that show, or revival, because holy shit, this is awesome. Anyways, the show continues right where the series ends, and the synopsis, not that you need to know what the synopsis of the X-Men is, but it depicts the X-Men facing dangerous new challenges following the loss of their leader, Professor X, Charles Xavier. X-Men 97 is produced by Marvel Studios Animation, with DeMaio serving as head writer for the first 2 seasons and Jake Castorina as a supervising director. And I'm actually pretty sure that Bo DeMaio was the individual individual that was fired a few days before it premiered, and it's unclear what it was for. I think there's some inappropriate behavior in his personal life or something to do with OnlyFans that Marvel and Disney weren't a fan of, so they have let him go. He will not be returning for season 2 or a season 3 possibly, which I hope we do get a season 2 and season 3 because this is dynamite. And let me just give you the cast really quick. So the cast is Ray Chase as Scott Summers Cyclops, Jennifer Hale as Jean Grey, Allison Seeley Smith as Oro Monroe Storm, Cal Dodd as James Logan Howlett or Wolverine, JP Karliak as Morph, Lenore Zan as Rogue, George Buza as Dr. Henry Hank McCoy or The Beast, and AJ Locascio as Gambit or Remy LeBeau. Holly Chu is Jubilee, Isaac Robinson Smith is Luke Bishop, Matthew Watterson is awesome as Magneto, Ross Marquand is Professor Charles Xavier, Guy Agostini is Sunspot. I think it's mostly the same voice cast as the original series, apart from I think maybe a couple of cast members may have actually passed away since the original series. So there has been some recasting, but mostly it's like people coming back, and holy shit, this show, we are so back. This is so awesome. I don't know how many of you are attached to the 90s X-Men series. I'm born in 2000. I'm 23 years old, so I was never alive to see them on television. However, as a kid, I did have a few X-Men, the animated series VHS tapes. At various people's houses, I had seen the series as well as the Spider-Man 90s cartoon series, which I thought was phenomenal as well. And in my older age, with the magic of streaming, I've watched a bunch of it on Disney Plus, and same with the Spider-Man series. And holy shit, like what a great program. So when I heard they were reviving it, I was at first a little skeptical. I was like, I don't know if we want to go back and touch one of the more popular cartoons, and especially one that was like super famous, has a great theme song, and is just like really well renowned. But I'll have to say it. I'll put my hands up and say I was absolutely wrong, because this is not only is this a perfect continuation of the series, it is actually a really great update on it with the animation style and just kind of the medium it's being delivered in. I think this is a really great week-to-week show to watch. It's only 30 minutes every week. It comes out on Tuesdays, I believe. And if you like shows like Invincible, which is a newer animated show, I would definitely check this out, because it's just really it's fun. The animation's awesome. The voice acting is phenomenal. The story is really interesting. And now that television has moved on from the 22 episodes a season world that we lived in, now it is 8 to maybe 12 maximum, and it's week to week or dump all at once. This is a weekly release, which I think benefits it. The show really captures the magic of the original, and I think having it'll be a 10 episode first season. I think the story is really well focused. The episodes have felt different. It hasn't felt repetitive. It feels like both a week to week serial show where they're going on different adventures while having a great tie-in theme every week and an overall MacGuffin or an overall problem that they're needing to solve, which is the fallout or what the X-Men are going to do after Charles Xavier is gone, who is going to lead. And I'm just going to get right into spoilers, because much of the series is based off of the comics that had, come out decades ago. As I said, so the series finale of the original X-Men animated series is Charles Xavier dies, and so this picks up right after that. And it's about like how mutants and humans are going to get along. What's the fallout going to be after Charles Xavier is gone, who is like an advocate for humans and mutants living together, whereas Magneto wasn't. So episode 1, it's like Cyclops is kind of leading the X-Men, and he's the one keeping it all together, but him and Jean Grey are, she's very pregnant, and they're thinking about leaving the X-Men to go live another life, but of course they've just lost Professor X, so the team is kind of hesitant and saying, you guys can't leave, like we just lost him, now we're going to lose you guys too. Like it feels like the team's falling apart, especially because Cyclops and Jean Grey are two of the original members of that X-Men team with Charles. So episode 1 is all about dealing with kind of this anti-mutant weaponry that's going around that arms arms dealers and stuff like that are smuggling. A really great episode. I think right away off the bat, this feels like such a nostalgia trip, but it feels super upgraded. Like I said, the theme song, I think Kevin Feige said the only way we're reviving this is if we get the theme song back. And they've even upgraded the theme song to have like a couple of new characters in it who weren't in the original series. If you want really super in-depth videos about this series and the revival, I recommend on YouTube Nando V Movies, of course. He talks about the new X-Men series, but also Emergency Awesome has a really great episode by episode breakdown. They're like 25 minutes each. I highly recommend that. So yeah, the intro, like right away off the bat, oh my god, I got goosebumps. I live for the X-Men animated series theme song. That goes so hard. And even tonight when I watched episode 3 before I recorded, I got goosebumps during the theme because it's so good. But anyways, episode 1 has some really, really, really great fights against like these massive machines and all these anti-mutant weapons that have been developed. And Cyclops is like the new leader. And this show finally did something where they made Cyclops cool. Like he kind of suffers from the Superman syndrome where he's just like kind of a boring guy because he just like stands for honesty and justice and there's not a lot of like gray zones with him. But in this show, he's just like kind of a badass and he's super cool. Like he's like, for me, my X-Men, and he like lands out of the sky and makes a sick entrance with his beam. Oh, it's so dope. I love Cyclops in this show. I know, like 10 years ago, if you told me Cyclops would be your favorite X-Men maybe in the future, I would have thought you were psycho, but he's so dope in this. Storm, awesome. The voice actress for her is so phenomenal. In episode 2, actually the ending of episode 1 reveals, and this was in the trailer I believe, that Magneto is back and Charles Xavier left everything in his will and testament, everything he owns, to Magneto because they were, best friends growing up, and the only thing they differed on was humans and mutants coexisting. But Magneto promises that he's changed. He says, I've moved on from thinking that humans shouldn't exist along with us mutants and that, it should just be a mutant world. And he promises to try and lead the X-Men in an honest way. And episode 2, we get the trial of Magneto, which is a very popular comic line as far as I know, or a comic series within the X-Men franchise. So again, you can go to those YouTube accounts that I've recommended because they kind of have, they've read like every comic and they do really great in-depth stuff, so I highly recommend them. But the episode 2 is just talks about great themes about human and mutant coexistence, and I think it just talks to a lot of tolerance and acceptance, things that really reflect in our real life. That like I'm literally watching a cartoon, and of course this is what the X-Men were all about when they were invented in the 60s or whatever, or whenever they were invented. They're meant to be the different people in society that aren't accepted, and it's just like this show speaks to the whole idea of the X-Men so well. And there was actually a few quotes in the episode that I was just blown away by, like, oh my god, that was actually super profound about like tolerance versus acceptance and stuff like that. Just really great. So yeah, episode 2, we get Magneto on trial and he's like trying to really show that he's changed for the council, and the anti-mutant gun and weaponry come back in, and the villain of the episode actually goes to the trial, and they want to ambush the trial, all the like for the human or for humankind, whatever, supporters or whatever, vigilantes that are going to attack all the mutants. So they develop this gun that can basically shoot a mutant and take their powers away, and Storm actually jumps in front of the beam before it hits Magneto. So right now in the story, Storm has lost her powers. She lost them in episode 2. We still don't know what's happening. But yeah, episode 2, really great. And I think episode 1, 2, and 3 have all had really great cliffhangers or really great final scenes that you're like, oh, well, I have to tune in next week because I need to see where this goes. Episode 1, Magneto shows up. Episode 2, Storm loses her powers, and then Jean Grey shows up. But wait, we already have a Jean Grey in the house who is pregnant and just had a baby, or was pregnant, just had a baby, literally this episode with Scott. And it's like, who the hell are you? So it's Madeline Pryor, who is created by Mr. Sinister. So episode 3, which it leads perfectly into, is all about Madeline Pryor and the two Jean Greys, and they're fighting each other saying who's the real Jean Grey, and it's like even unsure to us, but it's actually Madeline Pryor. And the Mr. Sinister shows up, and it's a really great episode. And like I said, the final scene of that episode is Storm meeting someone in a bar that's like, oh, I wish I had someone who could make this Texas heat go away with a nice like rainstorm or something like that. And he reveals that he was a friend of Charles Xavier, and he's like, and I want to help you get your powers back, basically. basically. So just a really great cliffhanger that you're back in for. You're like, oh Jesus, I gotta watch next week. I'm addicted to this. Which this is at the same time, I wish all these episodes dropped at once so I could just binge them because I would watch them in one day. But I'm happy that we're getting the week to week discourse, and it's just like universal love. I think the show has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm pretty sure. Pardon me, it has 98% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 94% average audience score, which is friggin' phenomenal. That's really good. Like and I haven't seen anything negative online. This is a very rare thing where I haven't seen any division online about like, the quality of the product. It's just kind of universally loved, and it's it's really cool to see, and I'm loving it week to week. I think they're really balancing all the characters well and the plot lines. They're not just, I know it's an animated show and people tend to just judge animated shows as like stupid children's things that are meant to be dumbed down, but it actually feels really mature, and they're balancing the storylines very well and making everyone extremely nuanced. The voice acting, as I said, is really great, and I can't recommend this enough. Like even if you're not a fan of the X-Men or never watched the 90s series, you should totally watch totally watch this. Like I've already wanted to go back and watch the first 3 episodes again just because to hear that theme song and see all the really sick fights, and it's it is an awesome program. So that's episodes 1 to 3. I can't wait for the rest. I think this is going to be like some of the best animated television. It's like Invincible, which is also out, and last week had a phenomenal episode as well. I'm gonna watch the next episode like probably after I record this or tomorrow morning. Yeah, and if you want another really great show to watch week to week that's actually pretty short, it's only 32-minute episodes, highly recommend X-Men 97. It's on Disney Plus. Totally worth it in my eyes. So that does it for our 2 reviews. Now let's get into what else I watched this week that I just quickly want to go over. I actually watched 3 movies last weekend. I watched Half Nelson with Ryan Gosling from 2006, where he is a teacher that is also an addict, and it's just about his struggle with his addiction and trying not to disappoint this young girl that's in his class that really looks up to him and is trying to help him through this addiction. But a really great performance by Ryan Gosling and actually everybody in the film. It was really powerful, and I could not recommend it enough. I think it has just a really great depiction of what addiction looks like. Oh, bars, that was a rhyme. Depiction addiction. Yeah, a really great story, and I think it's only like 2 hours and 2 minutes. It's a really quick watch. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a phenomenal story. I had never watched it before, and I feel like it is kind of popular, but it's maybe one that slips under the radar. But Ryan Gosling, really good. I mean, he's one of my 3 favorite actors, I'd say 4 favorite actors, like easily my top 3, if not my favorite, other than Harrison Ford. So he's really great, and I think he just has a very sad but a very understanding performance. You understand why he's struggling. I couldn't recommend it enough. Half Nelson, really good. A more cheery film I watched before I get to the really sad one I watched a movie called Plus One with Maya Erskine and Jack Quaid, which is on Netflix, or at least in Canada it's on Netflix. It's about these 2 friends that just go as each other's plus ones to all these weddings because they're both single, or one of them just broke up out of a relationship, and the other one is extremely picky and is just not good at dating and struggles to get into serious relationships because he's too picky. Awesome movie. Oh my god, I absolutely loved it. It was hilarious. It is such a good rom-com. We need more stuff like this. How have I not watched this before? It's from 2019. Has 2 actors that I really like. Maya Erskine's awesome in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and she's so goddamn funny in this movie. Jack Quaid is maybe one of the only Nepo babies that I will accept and be like, yes, I encourage this nepotism, because Jack Quaid is so good in it. He just feels like himself and stuff in a really great way, and feels very charismatic and fun. I really did enjoy Plus One. That's on Netflix in Canada if you have it. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's like an hour and 36 minutes, an hour and 44 minutes, I think. It was so much fun. I could have watched like 4 more hours of these 2 people interacting, but a really beautiful story. Speaking of beautiful, having watched Dune Part 2 and the Timothée Chalamet Warner Brothers deal being announced, I watched a movie that I hadn't seen before with Timothée Chalamet called Beautiful Boy, which is another film about addiction. Weird coincidence that I watched 2 films about addiction this week. I think watching Half Nelson, I was like, oh, Beautiful Boy, I've never seen that movie. So I watched that as well on Amazon Prime, and some very weird directing and, I don't know, musical choices in the film, but overall performance-wise, Timothée Chalamet is phenomenal in the movie, and as Nick, and I I cry the entire movie, to be honest. I can't watch stuff where it's fathers and sons or mothers and sons or brothers or anything familial. I really struggle to watch. I don't know why I'm so sentimental in my old age, maybe, but I cried from the first scene of the film, and it really is just a beautiful story about the struggle to get clean and how it's not a one-day process. It is a daily struggle, and I had no clue it's based on a true story. No clue it's based on a book. I can't recommend Beautiful Boy enough. I think it is pretty poorly directed, and the musical choices, like I said, are really weird in the film, but on the whole, a phenomenal movie, and I couldn't say enough great things about it. I really did enjoy it, and just a beautiful story about a father and a son and a family, and the daily fight to fight off addiction and get clean, but also to keep clean, and that it's not, like I said, it's not a one-day process. It is. Finally, I also watched Curb Your Enthusiasm. I think we have 2 episodes left. There was Conan O'Brien in the last episode, and he was hilarious in it. He's playing a very heightened version of himself where he's a very exclusive celebrity that no one can talk to, and you need to get clearance to talk to him. And then Steve Buscemi was in it. He wasn't playing himself, but he's really funny. He's trying to sell Richard Lewis, who was also in this episode and very funny. He's trying to sell him a car, but Richard Lewis had long COVID and he can't smell anymore, so he brings Larry just to come smell the car, and it has an old stench. And yeah, it's just a really great episode. I'm really sad Curb's ending. I could let Larry make it for years, but he's almost 80. You gotta let the guy rest. So yeah, 2 more episodes, and I'm very sad. We're getting closer to the trial within Curb. Also, quickly, I watched Survivor 46, of course, and I've been watching 42 with my girlfriend, and 42 is actually much better than I thought it was going to be. 46, we had our first Banu-less episode this week, and it was really great. We saw the Green Tribe had to turn on each other, and because they finally lost a challenge and went to tribal council, and it feels like the show is like finally started. I feel like I was pretty harsh on it last week, and deservedly so, because those first 4 episodes just felt like they were going nowhere, and all we got was just Banu crying and praying to God that he was taken out of the game or whatever and had mercy. It was just really cringe to watch, but it feels like it finally picked up this week, and just so much good stuff going on. Like, oh my God, there's so much good TV on right now. I'm gonna go watch Invincible, and I didn't even talk about Shogun. I don't think I watched it this week because what was I doing? Tuesday night I saw Olivia Rodrigo in Montreal after my girlfriend and I bought tickets last weekend, and here's a first. That was my first concert ever. I have never been to a concert in my life. I've been to school talent shows and stuff like that, but I've never paid and gone to a concert. So it was crazy. We drove 7 hours altogether, 6 hours altogether. I got home at 2 a.m. Amazing. A really great show. She's so good live. I'm a huge fan of hers. I love both of her albums, and it was really great. I couldn't hear anything the next day, and my throat hurt right after the show because I was just singing the entire time, and it's actually really cool. Everybody stood up the entire show. Nobody sat down. It was crazy. And the opener, Chapel Roan, was really good as well. I'd never heard her stuff before, but she has a beautiful voice, and a very cool experience going to a concert. It is like sports, but everybody's there to watch someone sing instead of a bunch of sweaty people trying, tackle each other and score points or whatever. It's just like it's very cool watching something live. And I think what I like about it being live is there were mistakes. Like in the show, one of the dancers threw a mirror they were holding off stage into the mosh pit by accident. They were doing a spin when they danced and let it fly out of their hands. And actually you can see it on her Instagram, on Instagram, I think. And then another dancer, their blouse opened at the back and blew up. And it was really funny, but they kept going. Both of them just kept going during their dances, and really awesome. The show must go on. So there you go. There's a first concert review. I'm seeing Leve at Ottawa Jazz Fest in July. Maybe I'll do a review for that as well at the end of the episode that week. But guys, I think that about does it for episode 11, Masters of the Air and X-Men 97, episodes 1-3. Thank you so much again for listening. I hope you've had a great Easter weekend. Please, 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 if you can, rate and review this show on all platforms. You have Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. You rate it 5 stars, share it. It seriously helps the show grow. It helps it so much, and it's really appreciated. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on YouTube Premium, you can like the video. You can comment. What do you think of the X-Men Revival? Arrival? What did you think of Masters of the Air if you watched it? What's the first concert you ever went to? And subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know every Monday. Email the show at watcherofallthings@gmail.com. I want to hear what you have to say. Do you have ideas for episodes that you want me to talk about? What have you thought about past topics? Let me know what you thought of the topics this week and also the news. And I've started an Instagram for the show. Watcher of All Things is the username. You can follow me on there. I'll link it below as well. I'm going to start a TikTok for it. Hopefully be posting some shorter clips and stuff like that. Follow me on Letterboxd as well. KikiJ70. That's KIKIJ70 on Letterboxd. You can see my reviews instantly. Everything will be linked in the show notes below and in the description on YouTube. Next week, we have Dev Patel's directorial film debut, Monkey Man, the action-packed John Wick type program. Very much looking forward to that. Happy Easter. I hope you have a great week. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.